Aloha and good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's Tuesday night. It's time for Tuning Up with Iggy, that's me, and Dave.
That is me.
How are you, Dave?
I'm excellent, Iggy. How are you?
Good. Great set of concerts this past.
Wonderful set of concerts this past week, and it was so nice to have all of those tremendous Hawaiian artists join us from the Liliuokalani Trust, and I hope there's more of that in our future.
And of course, we have our returning maestro this week, Maestro Sarah Hicks. Thanks for joining us again tonight.
Thanks for having me again tonight. It's great to be here again.
And tonight, we are so pleased to welcome one of the winners of the Nā hōkū ōpio Young Stars competition, soprano singer Sophia Stark. Sophia, so great to have you tonight.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
So tell us, you are a beautiful soprano singer. You were excited to have the opportunity to enter the competition and to be a winner. How did it feel to get a call from Dave and hear that you were one of the winners?
It felt pretty amazing because I had only found out about the competition I think almost a few days before I decided to enter. So when I got the call and when I found out that I was a winner, I was so excited to be able to perform with the symphony because actually I am the last person in my immediate family to have the opportunity to solo with the symphony. Even my younger brother has soloed with the symphony before me.
Well, for those of you who don't know, I don't know if that's many of you, but tell us, before we get to your life, tell us about your family.
Oh, so I grew up in a very musical family. My dad, he's the associate second principal of the Hawaii Symphony Orchestra.
Daryl Stark?
Yes, Daryl Stark. And my mother is Georgine Stark. She's an opera singer. She's taught me everything I know about singing. And she has also sung with the symphony numerous times.
Beethoven 9?
Yes, with Beethoven 9, and with other things as well.
Operas?
Yes, exactly. And also my younger brother, Raphael, he is 14, and he actually sang with the symphony a few years back for the Bernstein Chichester Psalms. He was the boy soprano soloist. So yeah, I've grown up in an extremely musical family. We've been performing together ever since I was around 6 years old. One of my favorite things about performing together as a family is that we get to go to senior centers and senior living facilities around the holidays, especially around Christmas time, and we get to perform for residents, and it's such a great experience to be able to see them year after year and to continue to perform.
Dave, did you know about Daryl's family?
I had heard rumors, through the Coconut Wireless about how talented the family was, and it's such a joy to be able to feature you on this performance. I want to ask Sarah, how old were you the first time you played with the Hawaii Symphony Orchestra?
I think, well, it was the then Honolulu Symphony.
Yes.
I believe I was 12.
12,
yes.
okay.
I played a Mozart E-flat, number 9, piano concerto, Kerschel 271, first movement.
Wow,
Yeah,
okay.
good memory.
Yeah.
I can't forget an experience like that.
What was it like?
It was wonderful to be surrounded by so much sound that way, and I think that began my love affair with the orchestra, actually playing in front of an orchestra. Yeah. So it, in some way, took me to where I am now, standing in front of an orchestra.
Just look where you could go.
Yeah.
Sophia, what do you expect? Because you have so many talents, and so musical theater, you performed in an opera format, but this is kind of going to be the first time you're going to be standing in front of the orchestra. Did your dad tell you, okay, this is what you're going to expect, this is how you're going to feel, or?
Actually, yeah, both my mom and dad, they've been kind of preparing me how to act in front of a symphony orchestra, how to interact with the conductor, also how to just conduct myself on stage, no pun intended. But yeah, I think that I'm gonna have a lot of fun in this experience because although I've performed, like you said, I performed in operas where I've seen the orchestra below me in the pit, I have never been in front of them with all the sound and everything behind me. So I'm really looking forward to the experience.
Sarah, I'm assuming you've worked with a lot with young, promising artists. Sophia mentioned, how to interact with the conductor. What would you tell Sophia how young artists like herself should interact with the conductor? Any advice for her?
I always think that you should speak your mind. If you feel like a tempo is wrong or something's too loud or it doesn't feel right, the orchestra is there to support your sound, and so it's your voice literally. So you should be able to tell the conductor, hey, can we try this? Or that didn't feel quite right, can you help me do this? Because it is a partnership, and I think sometimes young artists just want to sort of sit by and be polite, but I say this is your performance and we need to all create it together, so be a part of that process.
Could we discuss the repertoire for this performance? What are we singing?
So I will be singing Je veux vivre, which is Juliet's Waltz from Romeo and Juliet by Charles Gounod. And I will also be singing Getting Married Today from Company by Stephen Sondheim. So it's two very different pieces.
And I have to confess, I know the Je veux vivre very well. Je veux vivre very well. Right? But I actually don't know the Stephen Sondheim Getting Married Today.
Yes.
Can you contextualize this song for us?
Yes, of course. So Getting Married Today, it's from a concept musical called Company. It was written by Stephen Sondheim. And it premiered in 1970, and it's basically about, there's this single man in his 30s named is Robert, and it's about his interactions with 5 different either married or engaged couples. And it kind of tells the story of his 35th birthday and just everything that kind of happens in his life and the lives of those around him. So this particular piece is about a young woman named Amy, and she's engaged to Paul. This is on her wedding day, and she really does not want to get married in that moment. So the whole piece is about her kind of unraveling and listing every single little detail as to why she does not want to get married. So it's a very interesting piece, and there's a lot of patter and very, very fast rhythmic passages. So I'm really excited to be performing it.
I want to ask you about the Guno as well, but Sarah mentioned about how you were soloist. So I have this perception, I don't know if it's true, but I feel like when you have an instrumentalist, soloist, doing partnership with the conductor usually somewhat follows the instrumentalist. But when it comes to singing, often, because I've sat in the pit, right? Often the conductor kind of tells the singer how to phrase something or when to be on time. Is that a wrong perception?
I think it depends on who's conducting and who's singing. I've done a lot of opera, and we do, before we get in front of an orchestra, sit and talk about how do we think of this character, how do we hear this phrase, and we hope to, come to consensus before we come to the orchestra rehearsal. But I think it's always collaborative in terms of what we're trying to find, something in the middle sometimes. Sometimes there is not quite consensus, but you got to figure something out to make it work. So I would say it's equal. It depends on what the situation is and the personalities involved.
Which, Dave, I always thought about that, but so you have a top executive position, which leads me to think that even as we were a younger student maybe playing viola, you probably had a strong opinion of how things should maybe be like. Did you feel that when you had a conductor and you were playing viola, because of your maybe makeup as a future leader, that you had the strong urge deep inside of you to tell the conductor how things should be done?
Wait, can I ask, you're a violist?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It all makes sense now,
It does. It's all
doesn't it?
coming together to me now.
Iggy, that was a very kind way of putting all of that. I appreciate that. You are so diplomatic. It's amazing, from the inner voices where you put offbeats and how it can control the tempo and the rhythm of a piece. So how's that for an answer?
Right. We do have to pay attention to what the violas are doing.
I think that is, in my leadership role and how, I'm someone who's very collaborative. I like to hear a lot of voices in the decision-making process. And I think that does really stem from, really enjoying playing chamber music. Being inside and being able to push and pull and to lead from, that that area, I think, there's a lot that can be done. It's not always the first violinist, kind of in the course.
My way or the highway, right?
So I've heard.
So, Sophia, Je veux vivre, tell us about that. What is she saying?
Yeah, so the whole aria is about Juliet actually expressing the fact that she also doesn't want to get married. So there's a little bit of similarity between both pieces in that sense. But Juliet is saying how she wants to just be able to enjoy her youthfulness and enjoy, I guess, the golden years in life. And she doesn't want to be tied down by marriage and obligations. So it's a very, very fun piece to sing, although there's a lot of like vocal fireworks or pyrotechnics, as my mom likes to call them.
So I guess there's something about the timbre when you're a vocal singer. I guess the Germans call it the Fach. F-A-C-H, I believe.
Say that again.
Fach. Where you have a lyrical soprano or dramatic soprano or coloratura or things like that. So it's not so much high or how low you can sing, but about the timbre. Is there? Do you have to worry about that right now at the stage of your life where you only, in your teens, or does that come up later?
That's actually a pretty interesting question. So I've actually talked with my mom, who's of course my teacher, and actually a few other professional singers as well. And they usually say that kind of comes with age and as your voice gets more mature. I've always loved doing more coloratura soprano things, but I also don't really want to put myself in a box. Like I want to be able to, I guess, be open to trying all different styles, whether it's lyrical, whether it's a more dramatic aria. But usually I try to save the more dramatic things for when I'm a little bit older and my voice has the more mature and like warm qualities to it.
So can you talk us through where this fits on the entire program? West Side Story and more.
There's a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Well, we begin the evening with a piece by Michael Thomas Foumai, Rat Race, which is very cinematic, and it's gone through many iterations. I discovered that this is, I think, the 5th or 6th version. Exciting piece. And then we have a piece by Michael Torkey, which I love because he's a synesthete, and he has these wonderful color pieces. And so I think his writing is very colorful, and especially this piece, Javelin, was written for the 50th anniversary of the Atlanta Symphony, and also it was commissioned by the Atlanta, Olympic Committee, I think, is that? Yeah, so it was a dual piece for both the 1996 Olympics and the 50th anniversary of the Atlanta Symphony. Then we have Sophia. Oh, actually, no, did we have Makana before that?
Oh.
I
don't know the program
I can't
order,
remember
sorry.
the order.
TBD.
TBD. Surprise
Come on
for
Friday.
everyone. Go and find out. Sophia will sing her 2 pieces. We have Makana, who's coming to dazzle us with some slack key and to sing. And then we wrap up with 2 more American composers. We have Aaron Copland, movement from Rodeo Suite, and then we play, what's the last one?
The West Side
I'm
Story.
kidding. Title of it. Yes, West Side Story. It's a suite of music from West Side Story, one of my favorite musicals. And yeah, it's a little bit of everything, but I think it's each section, each piece has a very particular perspective. And I love that in music when we can show perspectives.
Why is West Side Story one of your favorite musicals?
Well, the whole Romeo and Juliet love story, forbidden love, overcoming all of these hurdles to join together, and the drama and this turbulent ending. It's so wrought with emotion. And the film, I adored the film. It's one of the first that I remember seeing. So it's very much in my memory. And the music, of course. Bernstein was my childhood hero. I saw him conduct the Vienna Phil. It was called Bernstein Beethoven. It was on TV on PBS, and I was 6 or 7. And I said, I want to be that man. He was just so mesmerizing. So it's a little bit of everything. So
Great.
yeah.
There's a common thread, Romeo and Juliet and West Side Story. Sophia, you're, not to date ourselves, but I think the movie West Side Story is from 1960 or so. But you're very fond of West Side Story as well?
Yes, and I actually agree very much with what you said about just like how much the musical shows just, I guess, like the love and the drama and all the turmoil that goes on. And especially, it's mostly a cast of teenagers. Well, they're supposed to be teenagers anyway. But yeah, I remember I actually recently watched the movie, and I just remember being completely drawn in and just enthralled by the storyline and of course the music. I've always loved Bernstein, and I've been listening to the soundtrack on repeat ever since.
Well, you mentioned earlier that you didn't want to stay inside the box, and obviously you have so many talents. Tell us a little bit, how you became a soprano singer. I guess you started with your mom, but your other taste in music and other accomplishments.
Yeah, so I've known that I've always wanted to do something in the entertainment industry. I think for a while I wanted to be an opera singer just like my mom. Ever since I was really little, I guess I was just kind of trained to be in the entertainment industry. And I think because of that, my parents, they were always open to me trying new things. For example, I love drawing and painting. I've won numerous art competitions at the local, state, national, and actually even international level.
Didn't you win something for Toyota or?
Yes. So I won the Toyota Dream Car World Art Contest. So that was back in 2017. I was one of 10 world finalists in my age category at the time. I was flown out to Japan along with my family. It was an all expenses paid trip. So thank you, Toyota. But yeah, it was just a great experience, and I was able to meet lots of other kids and youth from around the globe who also shared a deep passion for drawing and painting. And it was so great to be able to share that experience with them.
And of course, Makana, of Hawaiian music, but Hawaiian culture is very dear to you. You had the opportunity to do hula and be featured in abroad?
Yes, so I've started taking hula when I was around 3-4 years old. I continued taking it for around 8 years after that. I've always loved hula and Hawaiian culture. I know that my family and we love going to museums, so they would take me to the Bishop Museum, and I loved going through the Hawaiian halls and just learning about all the different aspects of Hawaiian culture. And I was actually even able to travel with my family to Shanghai, China a few years ago. I was able to teach and perform hula at a music school there, and that experience is one that I will definitely never forget. And I think just because I was able to experience teaching, and especially teaching a style of dance, that actually made me switch a little bit of my career path. And I realized that I wanted to become a teacher as well as a performer later on in life.
And as well, arts advocacy is very important to you. You had the opportunity to feature it on the platform when you ran for a pageant. Tell us about it.
Yes, so I actually, a few months ago, I was able to have the honor of winning Miss Hawaii Teen Volunteer 2021. I'm actually the inaugural title holder because it is a brand new program, and I'm really excited to be able to share my own platform, which is Arts Advocacy, just advocating for more arts funding in communities and schools. I actually even was able to offer testimony, I think almost 5 or 6 years ago, on behalf of the Hawaii Opera Theater for their educational department. So I think in addition to advocating for funding in communities, I also want to help get more funding to schools for arts and music programs, because that's something that's very dear to me, and I hope to be able to share my love with others.
And Sarah, you know, as someone who grew up here, and you're sort of a cultural ambassador wherever you go, and you represent Hawaii, do you want, when you come back here, do you see that arts is alive, or do you want to make sure that in education, arts is always present?
I mean, I think it's so important that arts are present in the educational system. And, you know, there's an issue all around the country in terms of funding for arts programs. And I think it's so important, especially, this is going to sound a little weird, but as we see all these people having road rage and these things happening on airplanes, you know, thousands of these incidents. And I feel like people aren't taught to understand their emotions and to regulate themselves and to be able to express themselves. It's a fundamental human skill. It's a skill of citizenship and of being human. We're not taught these things, but the arts teaches us these things. And when that is lacking, we're not able to understand who we are, what we feel like, and how we relate to the world. And that's what the arts teaches. So when people say, oh, this is something extra, you know, make sure that we pass all these tests. And I say, no, fundamentally, our responsibility is to be a good citizen in the world. And to do that, we need the arts. Music teaches us how to work with each other, regardless of whether we have different voices, different instruments, where we come from. You know, it helps us express ourselves and understand ourselves. So I always advocate for music education, not just because it's a lovely extra in life, but because it is fundamental to who we are.
So living on the mainland now, what culturally do you miss the most about Hawaii?
Oh, so many things. Food.
Food.
Yes, just the incredible mishmash of food. Although you can find spam musubi sort of all over the country now, so you know I've got that covered. But really, the food and this sort of sense of island time where it's a little bit more relaxed, and people tend to. I think that sort of seeps into your being here, where there's a sense of we're not always on top of something or pushing forward into something, but relaxing back, and it's just this wonderful sort of encompassing feeling. That's very much here in Hawaii that you don't see so much, well, never on the East Coast. California sometimes, but it really is this wonderful sense of ohana, and I love that here, so.
And culturally, musically speaking, you know, when you are working elsewhere, how do you feel that the influence of Hawaiian culture and what you grew up with here in Hawaii influences program choices or, you know, the choices you're making with other orchestras?
Because this is such a diverse place, and I tell this story that until I went to college, I did not identify. I went to college in the mainland. I didn't really think of who I was or what I was. And someone asked me, well, what are you? And I said, well, I lived in Hawaii. What are you? And I realized, oh, I'm half Japanese and half Haole. It didn't really register to me. And I realized all my friends are half something else. And that was this community in Hawaii. It was just so multicultural, and we won't get into, you know, totally race blind, but there was a sense of we all can belong. So that has always informed what I program, how I approach orchestras, how I approach soloists, that we need to find some sort of diversity because that reflects where I came from and grew up, and I want to replicate that wherever I can.
Sophia, there's something I've been wanting to ask you. I know your dad very well. We work together. I know your mom very well. Are you the best of them into Sophia?
Oh, they're right there.
Right there.
How do I phrase this? I would hope that I am. I hope that I take some of their best qualities. They have a lot. So I hope that some of that kind of got put into me. I hope that I inherited of course, some of their talent, their ability to get along with people well, especially from my mom's side. I really hope that I inherited some good things from them.
My easier and maybe more PC question was, because you have to run for pageant, you have to be in musical theater, and you're acting on stage, and you're singing opera, so your personality has to be sort of outgoing. Maybe not at home, when you're sitting dinner and your dad tells you to behave and chew your food, but you have to have a sort of outgoing personality. Do you feel like you always had that, or were you being taught that, or did that come from maybe your dad or your mom? Or?
Yeah, so I feel like I've always been, in general, like a very outgoing person. I love being around people, animals. I think especially with the lockdown and COVID, quarantine really showed me like how much I really value that face-to-face interaction, because while Zoom and other video platforms are great and it still allows us to be able to like hold conversations and participate in events virtually, I feel like nothing can really replace that interaction. Okay. I would say I gained probably a good amount of my outgoing personality from my mom. She's definitely a very bubbly, out there person. I think that she's the one who's encouraged me to always just not be afraid to speak up and talk to people, get to know people. I think that my dad has also taught me a lot of things as well, like how to conduct myself in different situations. And I think definitely because of all the pageants and things that I've entered, I've been able to gain a lot of experience, especially through interview training, and it helps me to realize like how to kind of collect and organize my own thoughts, and that actually really helps me even just in an informal setting, like when I'm just talking with my friends. It helps me to kind of, I guess, know what I want to get across and just how to express myself.
And when you interact with your brother, you feel like even though he's your younger brother, you have a lot to learn from him as well?
Oh, yes, definitely. He sometimes acts, no, he often acts more mature than I do. I definitely look up to him a lot. He's just always been there for me. He's such a great brother because I always have so much stuff going on. I'm always very busy, especially since I graduated high school 2 years early. So he's always had to put up with all my craziness, my early mornings, late nights, and then he's like, do you need anything? Can I help you? And I'm like, oh, yes, thank you. So yeah, Raphael, you're a great brother.
Before Dave asks maybe one of our last questions, Sarah mentioned that she misses food here in Hawaii. And you actually have an interesting story about a cooking show. Actually, we did have a pianist guest, Monica Chung, a few months ago, and she went on the senior format of that show. But tell us about your experience.
Yeah, so I appeared on Masterchef Junior. I was on season 6. I actually made it to top 18, so I made it pretty far, and I was very glad to be able to represent Hawaii. And
do you remember some of the dishes you made?
Yes, so the dish that got me a white apron was actually filet mignon with sauteed mushrooms. And I think to this day, that's probably one of the dishes that I'm most proud of because Gordon Ramsay liked it. Actually, the most strict judge was not Gordon Ramsay, it was Joe Bastianich. And it was so terrifying because he would just look at us and he would just chew the food and he would have zero expression. It was terrifying, but it was such a great experience and I learned so much.
Sorry, Dave, I forgot. There's one thing that's very important that you actually, and yet another accomplishment is you got to work with Ralph Nader on something, right?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yes, so I actually had the opportunity to work with Mr. Ralph Nader on a children's book. It's called I Lost My Bontolona, and it's about a young woman who loses something that she needs, and she finds it in a very unlikely place. And basically this book is just about how when you look for things that they're sometimes in the place that you least expect them to be. So yeah, I had the opportunity to meet Mr. Nader a few years ago in Connecticut, and he was able to talk with my family and I. He was very impressed with some artwork that I had done. I actually met him shortly after I found out I was going to Japan for the Toyota art contest. So I showed him my artwork and he asked if I would want to collaborate with him and illustrate this book. So a few years later, here it is.
Very good. Dave, how is your artwork?
Ooh, we'd have a lot of stick figures trying to find something if I had narrated that.
Good as mine then.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as we close here, one of the questions that I always like to pose, and I'm excited to do so with someone who's so supportive of the future of the arts, but what does the future of the symphony look like to both of you here in Hawaii?
That's a huge question. Do you want to take it first?
I will try. I guess the future of the symphony, I hope to always see my dad performing. It's always been great seeing him perform with symphony ever since I was really young. And I know it was always very easy to spot him because he's one of the only people who's bald. So my mom and even when we were really little, they'd be like, see, look, there's Daddy over there. And then we'd be like, oh yeah, we can see him. So I think just as far as like the future of arts and the symphony, I really hope to see the symphony do more community concerts and outreach. I know that that's a really vital part of, I guess, getting the island involved with what the symphony is doing. I've always liked the informal outdoor setting because I feel like it really introduces people who probably wouldn't have bought tickets to go to a traditional concert in like a concert hall in Blaisdell or in the Hawaii Theater. And I think just in the future, I hope to see the symphony grow even more. I hope that they can reach even more people on the island and even statewide. I just hope to see many great things in the future.
I'll take that.
I like that. How do I follow up from that? I mean,
More of
what she
more of
said,
that.
what she
More-
said. And also working with local artists like Sophia and Makana, and being able to support the talent in the community and finding ways to not just to do outreach, but to have these musical collaborations, and to, as I always say, it's not an artist and an orchestra and they just kind of play with each other. In the best sense, an artist and an orchestra can sometimes create this third entity, a different art form. And I think that's the excitement of having a large arts organization full of incredible musicians who can do a lot of things, and just exploring what that means to be an orchestra. And I think COVID, for a lot of orchestras, has reframed what it means to be a large arts organization. What is our responsibility to our communities, to our audiences? What does it mean to be a musician and an artist? So those are all great questions, and we're all looking for the right answers for them. But making this turn out of this fascinating year, I think a lot more discoveries, which is great.
Well, thank you both for joining us, for tuning up this evening. Tickets are available for all 3 nights, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 7:30 p.m. at the Waikiki Shell. Tickets can be purchased at myhso.org, and we look forward to seeing you there and seeing you after the show. Come on and say hello. And yeah, thank you so much, both of you, for joining us. Thank you, Iggy, as always.
Thank you very much.
We're getting close to our
Thank you, Master.
1-year anniversary of doing this show every single Tuesday. So thank you
Well
all
done.
for joining us, and we'll see you down in Waikiki this weekend.